What if the biggest threat to your success isn't your enemies? What if it's the people you keep allowing into your life? Stay with me, because by the end of this speech, you'll discover why toxic people thrive on your reactions and the smartest way to make sure they never control your mind again. Before we begin, answer this honestly in the comments. Have you ever had someone in your life who constantly drained your energy? Type yes if you've experienced it. Not every dangerous person attacks you openly. Some smile while quietly destroying your confidence. Some encourage you while secretly hoping you fail. Some never insult you directly, yet every conversation leaves you doubting yourself. That is the nature of toxic people. They don't always break your life with one dramatic event. They weaken you through repetition, a sarcastic comment, a broken promise, a constant criticism disguised as advice, a habit of blaming everyone except themselves. The mistake most people make is waiting for undeniable proof. They excuse the behavior. They're just stressed. They didn't mean it. They'll change. But patterns matter more than isolated incidents. One mistake can be forgiven. A repeated pattern becomes a choice. Stop judging people by who they claim to be. Judge them by the emotional environment they consistently create around you. Do you feel respected or constantly anxious? Do you feel encouraged or emotionally exhausted? Your emotions often reveal what your logic is trying to ignore. Here's another truth. Toxic people feed on emotional reactions. They want your anger. They want your frustration. They want your attention. Because every reaction reminds them they still have influence over you. The moment you lose emotional control, you hand them power. If this message is helping you see people more clearly, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. It helps more people build stronger minds, and you'll never miss future lessons like this. The strongest response is rarely the loudest one, it is the calmest. You don't have to win every argument. You don't have to defend yourself against every accusation. You don't have to explain your boundaries to people determined to ignore them. Silence can be more powerful than endless explanations. Distance can be more effective than revenge. Many people waste years trying to fix toxic individuals. They believe that with enough patience, enough kindness, or enough sacrifice, the other person will finally change. But lasting change cannot be forced. It must be chosen. Your responsibility is not to repair someone who refuses to take responsibility for their own actions. Your responsibility is to protect your peace. Set boundaries without guilt. Say no without apology. Walk away without hatred. Remember, boundaries are not punishments. They are protections. The people who become angry when you establish healthy limits are often the ones who benefited from you having none. Protect your time, protect your energy, protect your focus, because every minute spent arguing with someone committed to negativity is a minute stolen from your own growth. The smartest people understand that peace is more valuable than proving a point. They choose clarity over chaos, discipline over drama, distant over destruction. Never confuse tolerance with strength. Real strength is knowing when enough is enough. You cannot always choose who enters your life, but you can choose who is allowed to remain close enough to influence your mind. If this message changed the way you think, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And always remember, the smartest way to defeat toxic people is not by becoming like them. It's by refusing to let them control your peace. One of the most important skills in protecting yourself from toxic people is learning to recognize toxic patterns early. Many individuals do not reveal their harmful behavior immediately. In the beginning, they may appear charming, friendly, supportive, or trustworthy. This is why so many people become confused when a relationship that seemed positive slowly turns emotionally draining. The problem is often not a single dramatic incident, but a series of repeated behaviors that gradually reveal a person's true nature. Recognizing these patterns early can save you from months or even years of unnecessary stress and frustration. Toxic behavior is usually identified through consistency rather than isolated mistakes. Everyone has bad days, makes poor decisions, or says things they later regret. A healthy person acknowledges their mistakes and works to correct them. A toxic person, however, often repeats the same harmful behaviors without taking responsibility. For example, they may constantly blame others for their problems, refuse to accept criticism, manipulate situations to avoid accountability, or make you feel guilty whenever you express your needs. These actions are not random accidents. They become patterns that reveal deeper character traits. Another common sign is emotional exhaustion. After spending time with certain people, you may consistently feel drained, anxious, frustrated, or insecure. Conversations often revolve around their problems, complaints, or conflicts. They may criticize others constantly, create unnecessary drama, or make you question your own judgment. Over time, their presence begins to affect your confidence and peace of mind. Many people ignore these feelings because they hope the situation will improve or because they focus on occasional positive moments. However, temporary kindness does not erase a repeated pattern of harmful behavior. Manipulation is another pattern worth noticing. Toxic individuals often use guilt, pressure, or emotional tactics to get what they want. They may twist facts, deny obvious behavior, or make you feel responsible for their emotions and decisions. The more these patterns repeat, the clearer the picture becomes. Instead of judging people solely by their promises or intentions, pay attention to the environment they consistently create around you. Patterns reveal what words often conceal. The sooner you recognize repeated disrespect, manipulation, or emotional harm, the easier it becomes to protect your boundaries and make decisions that support your well-being. One of the greatest mistakes people make when dealing with toxic individuals is believing they must control the other person's behavior. In reality, you cannot control someone else's attitude, choices, or emotions. The only thing fully within your control is your own response. Toxic people often thrive on emotional reactions because strong emotions give them influence over your thoughts and decisions. When they see you becoming angry, defensive, or frustrated, they know they have captured your attention. The conversation is no longer about solving a problem. It becomes about controlling your emotional state. This is why emotional discipline is one of the strongest forms of protection. Toxic people may criticize you unfairly, provoke arguments, spread gossip, or deliberately push your emotional buttons. Their goal is not always to find a solution. Sometimes they simply want to create confusion, gain attention, or feel a sense of power. If you react impulsively by shouting, insulting them, or trying to prove yourself through endless arguments, you often become trapped in the very situation they created. The more emotionally invested you become, the harder it is to think clearly and make wise decisions. Remaining calm does not mean accepting disrespect or pretending harmful behavior is acceptable. It means refusing to let someone else's negativity dictate your actions. A calm response gives you the ability to observe the situation objectively, decide whether the conversation is worth continuing, and choose the most effective course of action. Sometimes that means speaking firmly. Other times it means ending the discussion or walking away entirely. Emotional control gives you the freedom to respond intentionally rather than react automatically. People with strong emotional discipline understand that not every insult deserves an answer, and not every accusation requires a defense. They recognize that protecting their peace is more valuable than winning an argument. Instead of allowing anger to guide their choices, they focus on maintaining self-respect and clear judgment. This approach often frustrates toxic individuals because they lose the emotional reaction they were hoping to create. Your calmness becomes a sign of inner strength rather than weakness. By mastering your own emotions instead of trying to control someone else's, you preserve your confidence, reduce unnecessary conflict, and prevent toxic people from gaining influence over your mind, your decisions, and your emotional well-being. Setting firm boundaries is one of the most effective ways to protect yourself from toxic people because boundaries define what behavior you will accept and what behavior you will no longer tolerate. Many people hesitate to establish limits because they fear being seen as rude, selfish, or unkind. They believe that keeping everyone happy is more important than protecting their own peace. Unfortunately, this mindset often encourages toxic individuals to continue pushing limits, making unreasonable demands, or treating them with disrespect. Without clear boundaries, People naturally assume they can continue behaving the same way because there have been no meaningful consequences. A boundary is not about controlling someone else's behavior. It is about deciding how you will respond when certain behaviors occur. For example, if someone constantly insults you, a boundary may be choosing to end the conversation instead of arguing. If a person repeatedly demands your time without respecting your schedule, a boundary may be politely refusing requests that interfere with your priorities. These decisions are not acts of punishment. They are acts of self-respect that communicate your time, energy, and emotional well-being are valuable. One of the biggest obstacles to setting boundaries is guilt. Toxic people often react negatively when they realize they can no longer control or manipulate you. They may accuse you of changing, becoming selfish, or no longer caring about the relationship. These reactions can make you question your decision, especially if you naturally want to avoid conflict. However, feeling guilty does not mean your boundary is wrong. In many cases, the discomfort comes from breaking an old pattern where your needs were consistently placed behind someone else's. Healthy boundaries are communicated calmly and consistently. There is no need for long arguments, endless explanations, or emotional confrontations. A simple and respectful statement, followed by consistent action, is usually far more effective. People quickly learn what you are willing to accept by observing how consistently you enforce your limits. Those who genuinely respect you will adapt to your boundaries, even if they need time to understand them. Those who become angry or attempt to manipulate you often reveal that they benefited from your lack of boundaries more than they valued the relationship itself. Protecting your peace through firm boundaries allows kindness and self-respect to exist together without sacrificing your emotional well-being. One of the most exhausting mistakes people make is believing they can change a toxic person through patience, kindness, or sacrifice. They convince themselves that if they explain things one more time, forgive one more betrayal, or offer enough love and understanding, the other person will eventually become different. While this belief often comes from compassion, it ignores an important reality. Lasting change cannot be forced from the outside. It must come from a genuine decision within the individual. No amount of effort can permanently transform someone who has no desire to recognize or correct their own harmful behavior. Toxic people often repeat the same patterns because those patterns benefit them. They may manipulate others to avoid responsibility, blame people instead of admitting mistakes, or create drama to gain attention and control. If these behaviors continue bringing the results they want, they have very little motivation to change. When someone constantly excuses their actions, refuses accountability, or believes everyone else is the problem, meaningful improvement becomes extremely difficult. Instead of accepting this reality, many people continue investing emotional energy into fixing someone who is unwilling to participate in their own growth. Trying to change another person can also cause you to neglect your own well-being. You begin focusing more on their choices than your own. Their moods determine your peace, their approval affects your confidence, and their reactions shape your decisions. Over time, you become emotionally exhausted because your happiness depends on solving a problem that is not yours to solve. This creates a cycle where your personal growth slows while all your attention is directed toward managing someone else's behavior. The wiser approach is to shift your focus from changing them to changing your response. You cannot decide whether another person becomes more respectful, honest, or emotionally mature. You can decide how much access they have to your life, how you respond to their actions, and whether you continue participating in unhealthy patterns. By accepting what is beyond your control, you regain your emotional freedom. Your energy is no longer wasted trying to force transformation in someone else. Instead, it is invested in strengthening your boundaries, protecting your peace, improving your own character, and building relationships with people who are already committed to honesty, respect, and personal responsibility. Your time and energy are two of the most valuable resources you possess because, unlike money or material possessions, they can never be fully recovered once they are spent. Toxic people often consume both without giving anything meaningful in return. They create unnecessary drama, demand constant attention, criticize your efforts, ignore your boundaries, and leave you emotionally exhausted after every interaction. At first, these moments may seem small or isolated, but over time they accumulate, affecting your confidence, productivity, and peace of mind. This is why protecting your time and energy is not an act of selfishness. It is an essential part of maintaining a healthy and balanced life. One of the first signs that a relationship may be unhealthy is how you consistently feel after spending time with someone. Do you leave conversations feeling encouraged, respected, and motivated? Or do you feel anxious, drained, and emotionally overwhelmed? While everyone experiences occasional conflict, healthy relationships usually leave both people feeling understood and valued. Toxic relationships, however, often create a cycle of tension where every interaction demands emotional effort without providing genuine support or understanding in return. Many people remain trapped in these relationships because they feel responsible for solving the other person's problems. They believe that if they continue listening, helping, or sacrificing their own needs, things will eventually improve. Unfortunately, toxic individuals often continue taking as long as someone continues giving. Without clear limits, your emotional energy becomes an unlimited resource that is constantly depleted. As your energy decreases, your ability to focus on your own goals, family health, and personal growth also begins to suffer. Protecting your time and energy means becoming more intentional about where you invest your attention. It means recognizing that every hour spent in unnecessary conflict is an hour taken away from something meaningful. It also means understanding that not every invitation deserves acceptance. Not every argument requires participation, and not every relationship deserves unlimited access to your life. Creating distance from people who repeatedly bring negativity allows space for healthier relationships, clearer thinking, and greater emotional stability. By choosing environments that support your growth instead of constantly draining your strength, you preserve the focus, confidence, and inner peace needed to build a life guided by purpose rather than by the emotional demands of toxic people. Many people believe that strength is measured by winning every argument, proving every point, or having the final word. While standing up for yourself is important, not every disagreement deserves your time, attention, or emotional energy. Toxic people often thrive on conflict because arguments give them exactly what they want: your focus, your frustration, and your emotional involvement. They may twist your words, ignore facts, or continuously change the subject to keep the conflict alive. In these situations, trying to win can become a trap. The more energy you invest, the more control they gain over your peace of mind. Choosing peace over winning does not mean admitting defeat or accepting unfair treatment. It means recognizing that some conversations have no productive outcome because the other person is not interested in understanding your perspective. Their goal may be to provoke a reaction, create confusion, or simply exhaust you emotionally. Continuing to argue with someone who refuses to listen often leads nowhere except deeper frustration. Wisdom lies in recognizing the difference between a meaningful discussion and a pointless battle. Emotionally mature people understand that silence can sometimes communicate more strength than endless explanations. They do not feel compelled to defend themselves against every accusation or respond to every insult. Instead, they carefully decide which situations deserve their attention. If a conversation can lead to understanding and resolution, they participate with honesty and respect. If it becomes clear that the discussion is driven by manipulation, hostility, or endless blame, they step away without feeling the need to prove themselves. Walking away from unnecessary conflict is an act of self-respect, not weakness. It demonstrates confidence because it shows that your emotional well-being is more valuable than satisfying your ego. You stop measuring success by whether someone agrees with you and begin measuring it by whether you protected your peace, maintained your dignity, and acted according to your values. This mindset allows you to conserve your energy for relationships and goals that truly deserve your attention. The strongest people are not those who win every argument, but those who know which battles are worth fighting. They understand that peace is not created by defeating every difficult person, It is created by refusing to let unnecessary conflict dominate their thoughts, drain their emotions, or distract them from building a life guided by purpose, clarity, and lasting inner strength.